Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to be checking out Overly Sarcastic Productions' Halloween special for Dracula. Now, last time around, we got up to the most recent episode of Journey to the West. Now I gotta wait another 7 months for the next part to come out, and that's gonna be fine. This is fine. So we're going to just jump into this, because I started with a Halloween special, and I figured, you know what, before getting into the next big series that OSP is doing, I'll check this out, because it's a bunch of red meat as far as I'm concerned, because frankly, I kind of like Dracula, even though I can't bring myself to do anything to do with it. I know, this is weird. I'm a coward. I can't do horror, but vampire stuff is kind of cool in how it's treated. I kind of like going back to the classic book itself. I know the mythologies before that, but frankly, I want to see their take on this. It's just curious to me, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, you know what? Nope, fuck it, we're doing that. I'll do Pope Fight next week. But right now, we're going to jump right into this. You guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. And if you like this, subscribe. And if there's anything else I should check out, let me know, because I'm probably not aware of it. Honestly, most of the cool stuff I find is because people tell me about it. And then when I forget about that, remind me, because I also need that. Let's get started.
Alright, let's talk vampires. Vampires have gone through an absurd transformation in the past few centuries. There's no one cultural origin for them, and
because
it
they
really
were
shows.
quite
Modern
old.
interpretations will often introduce the concept of vampire clans, or wacky vampire subspecies or whatever, in an attempt to reconcile the
This is a reference to World of Darkness, isn't it? Yeah, probably.
crazy menagerie of traits that have been assigned to vampires throughout history. Sometimes they're demons or fae, sometimes they're hungry ghosts, sometimes they're your garden variety reanimated corpse. Hell, the Mayans had a god that was basically a vampire, bat motif and all. You can't even rely on them to necessarily drink blood. So what, mythically speaking, makes something a
some
vampire?
don't drink blood?
Well, it's less of a rigid definition and more like a grab bag of traits that you can stick together into an appropriately intimidating creature of the night. Now, the popularity of these traits has changed over time. Back in the mid-1800s, the most popular one was unholy. Vampires were characterized as pure evil. Like a walking plague, they'd spread their curse until they were purified from the world via exorcism. This led to representations like Nosferatu, basically nothing more than a terrifying monster. But in more recent years, the unholy trait has been shunted to the background. The old crucifix trick still works mostly, but it's not their defining character trait. No, the trait that skyrocketed to the top of the popularity charts and has been the primary defining trait of vampires for decades is sexiness. Obviously, there are
That shouldn't be surprising to me. It really shouldn't be. But yeah, now that you pointed out, it actually makes perfect sense, and I hate everything about this.
exceptions, but vampires have been irrevocably associated with glamour and hypnotic beauty. Sure, usually their true form is a little less than seductive, but the connection is still there. Where once they were built around the concept of the horror of their existence, today's vampires are built around how horrifically pretty they are. They're all beautiful seductresses or hunky bad boys, with nary a claw-fingered hunchback in sight. And even if modern writers can't agree on a single other vampire trait, they can usually agree on that. But this is obviously a huge change. Much like Paradise Lost reimagining Satan into a sexy bad boy, something must have shifted the pop culture perspective on vampires from inhuman monster to I'm a monster, baby. There's no saving me. You should just stay
That's Buffy, isn't it?
For your own
That's Buffy. It's definitely Buffy.
But it wasn't that direct. It takes a lot of evolution to get from glamorously seductive but evil to you should aspire to date one. We didn't get some Victorian vampire romance novel.
There's gonna be a lot of references to that, aren't there?
Presented vampires in a more human light. Not necessarily a good one, but it gave them character. And character can be developed. Yeah, we're talking about Dracula. Now, here's the thing about Dracula. For all its influence on literature and gothic horror, not many people have actually read it. And that's a shame, because the real impact of the story can only really be gotten by reading it. See, the thing with Dracula is it's written as a slow burn. It's a collection of diary entries, telegrams, letters, and newspaper clippings that document, from several different perspectives.
Oh, so it's this style. Sorry, as an English major, I've actually had to do a bunch of historical reading, and a lot of the stuff you read now is very much in the news-esque style. Not news reporting, but in the very plain language that gives you exactly what you need, exactly as it's happening, sometimes from the character's perspective, sometimes for not. Honestly, I just did a whole bunch of things where I did a 1920s voice, and now I'm stuck in it whenever I think about things in the past. I'm just going to be doing that. It's uncontrollable. I've tried to stop, just to warn you in advance. More importantly, this style right here, it's still something that happens now. The diary format, the newspaper clipping format, the Dear Diary, My America books are actually a huge copy of that style. So I didn't actually know Dracula was written in this, though. So that's actually kind of cool for me. Huh.
Dracula's gradual attempt to take over England. For the first half of the book, nobody knows what's going on.
England?
And even at the time, it was a fascinating
Really?
subversion of existing tropes. The first section of the book is composed entirely of the diary entries of Jonathan Harker as he stays in Dracula's castle. It plays out almost exactly like a standard gothic horror novel, with one notable exception. The horror follows him home, which was not standard at the time. Now, the point is, Dracula's effectiveness is in the style, not the actual monster or the story. And in an attempt to reconcile this, I initially wrote a summary that attempted to preserve the style. Rather than explaining the plot as a whole, I was explaining it as it was revealed in story, to maintain the slow burn quality that I found made the story so effective.
But I'm assuming that didn't work out because the big reveal of Dracula himself is something most people know through osmosis at this point.
That summary was half an hour long. Needless to say, that ain't
What's the downside about that?
happening. So this is going to be a shorter summary that gets across the story but not the style, and I'm telling you right now, you should really read the book. It's got something that none of its knockoffs do. Legit suspense. Also, there's a lot of neat vampire lore that didn't get carried over into the resulting genre of vampire fiction. You might want to check that out. But in the meantime, here's the mini.
Didn't know Dracula was trying to take over England, though.
Jonathan Harker. Jonathan's been sent to Transylvania to oversee the logistics of a real estate transaction, and if this is already putting you to sleep, don't worry, it gets interesting real soon. See, Jonathan is...
The logistics?
A real estate transaction, and if this is already putting you to sleep,
Oh,
don't worry, it gets
God,
interesting
he's a
real
functionary.
soon. See, Jonathan is there as a guest of the eccentric Count Dracula,
Dun
and
dun.
paying no attention to the weeping peasant.
What a quaint village. The two feet a halaza tesek hoili? Huli? I can't tell if that's a different language or just heavily accented English. I'm pretty sure that word's holy down there.
Peasantry who keep pressing crucifixes into his hands. Jonathan confidently rides up to Castle Dracula and finds the Count to be an ugly, pale, mustachioed old man with hairy palms and alarmingly sharp teeth.
Hairy palms? Oh, I have never heard that description before. Oops, razor slipped.
Story short, after remaining staggeringly oblivious for quite some time, Jonathan finally sees Dracula doing some spooky stuff and puts together that he's in a gothic horror novel. This is also when he notices that all the doors...
Rattle. Are you well, friend Jonathan? Oh my God, he's just out the window.
are deadbolted. After a run-in with 3 sexy vampire ladies that Dracula apparently keeps in his house, Jonathan decides that he needs to get the heck out of there, and fails. Also, the vampire ladies eat a kid. Man, every day's a party in Chateau Dracula. So Jonathan does some snooping during the day when Dracula's sleeping and finds that he's making preparations to leave for England with 50 boxes of earth. Jonathan, having failed to find a way out of the castle or anything substantial on the plot, opts to let out some aggression by whacking Dracula on the head with a shovel and then runs off to sulk. When Dracula ships out with his boxes of earth, he leaves Jonathan to the mercy of the vampire ladies. Jonathan's final diary entry is that he's going to make a last desperate escape attempt by scaling the castle wall. In story, we don't know what happens to him for quite some time, but given that we have his diary, we can probably make some assumptions. Anyway,
on the one hand, Harker sounds really familiar. Isn't Mina Harker supposed to be involved here? I'll be honest, I know the name is important, but all my knowledge about that name is from Hellsing, so that should say everything you need to know. I'm too Victorian for this. That is actually how people thought. Come down here so we can kill you, but in a sexy way, with lots of bosoms. You know, there's probably people who'd be into that.
The book abruptly shifts from Jonathan Harker's wacky fun times in Vampireland to a series of letters between Jonathan Harker's fiancée Mina Harker and her friend Lucy Westenra. Mina is an intelligent and self-assured young woman.
I canonically figured out everything in this book. Oh, damn.
While Lucy is a textbook ingenue who is pure and good and has too many boyfriends, Lucy tells Mina about the spot of drama she had with her afternoon tea when 3 strapping young future protagonists proposed to her over the course of a single day. Dude number 1 is Dr. John Seward, a kind and soft-spoken young man who's got stable employment at the local insane asylum. Dude number 2 is a walking personification of the state of Texas by the name of Quincy P. Morris, which coincidentally...
I'm sorry. Okay, 1. Renfield, not now. Oh my God. Hi, Miss Lucy. Wait, is that 6 years ago? Oh, that's probably why they chose the name Renfield for the new movie with Dracula in it. Huh. I didn't realize I was actually connected. Neat. Also, what was that next part?
Dude number 2 is a walking personification of the state of Texas by the name of Quincy P. Morris, which...
All he needs is a Stetson, and he's basically set.
Coincidentally is also when we readers learn that Mr. Bram Stoker has never spoken to an American in his life. But
wait, what? I know, good but enough. Regulate the fixing of your little... Oh, shoes. But I guess if you wait, you find that is, go join the women, the lamps I quit. Won't you alongside. Dude, there's just too much words here to be an American. And that's the joke, of course, because he's just... Oh, those are eyes. I thought that was a drawing mistake at first. He's literally just spewing exposition. And there's not a single gun in this thing. It's definitely not American.
But luckily for Lucy, dude number 3 is the very dude she's had her heart set on all along. A bland-as-bread Englishman by the name of Arthur Holmwood. And he's the one whose proposal she accepted.
Oh, you've made me the happiest woman alive. Because you're boring and easily ignored? You know, considering what I know about the Victorian times, that actually would probably be a good reason.
Thankfully, despite all the drama...
Congratulations, Lord Godalming? Godalming? That's one hell of a name. I'll be... Knackered? Knackered? If she ain't the finest stallion on the ranch. I guess they're intentionally going with what the fuck levels of description because he's never talked to an American, and you don't describe females as stallion. That implies you are very much in the wrong place, sir. Granted, this is Victorian England. I'm sure they have a place for that.
Lucy has stayed good friends with both of the other suitors and is quite delighted with how the situation turned out.
Wasn't this book supposed to be about vampires?
Don't worry, the spooky is back when the ghost ship Demeter washes ashore one night in a terrible storm with 50 boxes of earth in the hold and a dead captain tied to the wheel with his last log entry in his pocket, describing the tall, thin man that drove his crew to madness and death. Say what you will about Dracula, but at least he always makes an entrance in style. So anyway, no sooner is Dracula...
Wait, he crossed water? This didn't happen in this castle? So now we are at the point where I kind of am tempted to get an audio file of the original book and listen to this. This sounds pretty cool.
...made landfall in England that Lucy falls quite ill. Now here's a little...
Okay, quite ill? What? Okay, we're just going to go back a second. What'd that say?
An entrance in style. So anyway, no sooner is Dracula made landfall in England that Lucy falls...
Lucy, are you okay? You sleepwalked all the way to the churchyard. I'm sure it's completely unrelated to Dracula. There's no
quite ill. Now, here's a little bit of cultural context. In Victorian romance novels, female characters had a tendency to get sick all the time. Tuberculosis was the main culprit because it made your character pale and weak, with a tendency towards fainting luxuriously onto nearby furniture. So,
I mean, that is why they had fainting couches. So, at the one hand, yeah, on the other hand, part of the fashion was to have really pale skin by bleeding out intentionally. And also painting your face with things that included a lot of heavy metals that also poison people. And yeah, everything would kill you. Everything would kill you. You're so beautiful and you look like you're gonna hurl. And by Victorian standards, that might actually count because she'd be pale as a ghost.
Lucy catching Victorian fainting lady disease wouldn't have raised too many eyebrows at the time. This is unfortunate because by the time...
John, help. Lucy's sick and not in a hot way. Considering what I know of Victorian England, even though it's what she said is more, oh God, he's pretty, is the thing going on now, it also probably would count here as well.
Time her fiance Arthur thinks to call in Dr. Seward to take a look at her, it's nearly too late, and Lucy's like,
you know, I'm not this kind of doctor. Mina, darling, your hands are so warm. They even have the circle and the blood loss fight. Or vite, I can't speak today. Bite, that's the word.
3 nights away from catching a severe case of vampiritis. Seward calls in a colleague who...
Patient, fainty, and lethargic, in a kinda hot but mostly worrying way. Stop. Oh, telegram.
Actually is a medical doctor, so we can take a look at her. An eccentric by the name of Dr. Abraham Van Helsing. Now that
Wait, he actually was a doctor?
Commands respect. But the character himself seems more than a little,
Guten Morgen,
goofy.
everybody.
First off, he's Dutch, which in Stokerland...
Dutch. I thought he was German. Well, crap, I can't do a Dutch accent to save my life. Granted, I can't do a German accent either, so I'm going to pretend it's the same. Honestly, they're basically insulting to anyone who can actually do accents anyway, so it doesn't change anything, but I'm going to pretend it does for my own sake. And by sake, I mean just the tiny part of my mind that pretends I can actually do accents and is constantly reminded by whenever I have to edit these videos and then hear the accent I just used. Those are very dark days.
And means he's written with some very awkward verbal mannerisms as he fails...
The milk that is spilled cries not out afterwards, as says you Englishmen. No, we don't. They don't? I mean, I'm an American. I'd believe it if they told me that.
to comprehend the intricacies of the English language. Second, he's not exactly visually intimidating. This Van Helsing appears to be little more than a goofy foreign doctor with a penchant for mangling metaphors. Appears to be. We've seen this trope before. So after an initial examination where Lucy seemed alright.
Are you alright? Feeling quite a bit better, thanks. Yes, having more blood in you after it's starting to come back helps. It does do that after all. Oddly enough, yeah, bones make blood. Still weird to know that.
Right, not great, but not terrible. Van Helsing is called back in a panic by Seward after Lucy takes a sudden turn for the worse. This is when we see the first instance of what I like to call Van Helsing's serious face. See,
Whoa.
Whenever something blatantly vampire
That bat's been hanging around here a lot. I'ma shoot it.
happens around him and he's the only one who knows what's going on, the good doctor packs up his wacky mannerisms and equips the serious face.
What?
Let's see it in action. Wow, she's incredibly pale. It's like she's lost a lot of blood.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is absolutely amazing. They actually have special lighting and effects for everything around him. He's like, oh, I'm the kid. Okay, I love this, and I love that she has that really fast, upbeat music in the background. Also, I know I've heard this waltz, and I'm pretty sure it's a waltz. Is it the Nutcracker? It might be. Honestly, I don't know. I don't listen to it very often. Or much music now that I think about it.
It almost looks like her teeth have gotten longer and pointier as well. So Helsing serious faces it up and tells Seward that Lucy's missing, like, all her blood and needs a transfusion stat. By the way, at the time, transfusion was like the hot new science and it wasn't fully understood. So if you're cringing at all the transfusions that end up happening with no regard for blood type, don't worry, it's hand-waved. Congratulations on living in the 21st century. Conveniently, Arthur arrives at just...
And still not the dumbest thing they did with blood at the time. Again, I will reference you to intentionally bleeding out to make yourself pale as a fashion choice. Yeah, so as much as I will probably cringe at the bleeding out things, or sorry, the transfusions, at least there was science behind it. Misunderstood and badly applied, and if you tried to do it this way, you would probably die horribly. Rejection's a bitch.
This moment, so they usher him off to reblood his fiancée. After they rearrange Lucy a little, Seward notices 2 small puncture wounds on Lucy's neck, and Helsing tells Seward to watch over her that night while he goes off and makes preparations.
And then there's like that little dun effect every time he does the face. I just love this. I'm sorry, it's so over the top intimidating voice. This is... I didn't expect I would love such a silly technique she's inducing, but it works, man. It really does.
Also, Mina learns that Jonathan's alive. Hooray!
Oh.
So Lucy seems to be doing much better for a few days until she abruptly isn't, and needs another transfusion, this time donated by Seward. So Lucy gets better again, and this time Helsing brings a bouquet of garlic flowers and arranges them around her room. You'd think this would help, but unfortunately, Lucy's mother inadvertently ruins everything by opening the window and clearing out all the garlic flowers to give her daughter some good, clean, fresh air. The only way
I will have you know, lady, that garlic is a perfectly good source of smell, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. Also, I may or may not have recently purchased a couple cloves, and my wife might agree with me, so I'm perfectly in the clear on this one.
She could have made this easier for Dracula was if she put down landing lights. Long story short, within a couple days, Lucy and her mother are both dead. Funeral arrangements happen, and my god, does the book like talking about how hot Lucy's corpse is. But anyway, Van Helsing drops a bunch of garlic flowers in the casket, along with a little gold crucifix, and tells Seward he's gonna have to come back later to cut off her head. Unfortunately, that doesn't end up working out, since someone steals the crucifix, and apparently keeping the big J in close proximity to Lucy's not yet not dead body was vital to Helsing's plans. And short story shorter, not long after that, Lucy rises from the grave and starts drinking the blood of local children. Van Helsing decides that it's time for the plot to advance already and gets into contact with Mina Harker, who, in the meantime, has been reading Jonathan's diary of his...
Who's she talking to now? Also, 3 sexy vampire ladies? Dang. Sorry, she is already one of my favorite characters. I don't even know how, because she's had almost no screen time. And how did she get his diaries anyways? I'm assuming they died.
Experiences in Dracula's castle and compiling all the information she has on this weird Dracula guy. She and Van Helsing prove themselves to be the only intelligent characters in the entire novel when, in the space of 5 pages, they put together all the stuff we, the readers, have been yelling at the book since page 1. Then, since plotted...
Wait.
5 pages, they put together all the stuff we, the readers, have been yelling at the book since page 1.
Did they just have 2 people actually talk, compare information, and make logical discussions a plot point, and then it worked? Oh, that is weird. Sorry, just from a writing standpoint. The reason you don't have conversations work is because you can get a lot more drama and things happening when it's like a misunderstanding and there's irony behind it. It's basically the Romeo and Juliet aspect. expect, you know what I mean? It's dramatic irony. It's where you know something, they know something else, but you know it's going to fuck up and they don't, and you're just watching them walk towards that cliff till they jump off it, and then Romeo and Juliet themselves. Yes, I'm using that as a verb, and I'm going to keep doing that. I don't know why I do it either. I just kind of do. But they're talking it out, and they're coming to the correct conclusion because of that. That's just... It doesn't happen in modern fiction or older fiction very often. So this is actually kind of surprising from a writing perspective.
Then, since plot advancement
Smart
is the order
people
of the
actually
day,
being
Van
smart.
Helsing rallies Lucy's boyfriend squad and tells them the long and short of what's going on. And when they understandably demand proof, takes them
The
to a
boyfriend
mausoleum
squad.
and
Oh, yeah,
shows
they all
them
were.
vampire Lucy in the act of draining the blood from a small child. See, the good thing about Dracula-era vampires is that their operatic levels of theatrical BS make it really easy to prove to skeptics that there's something legit spooky going on. So after some preparations, they kill vampire Lucy for realsies. So Van Helsing brings the Harkers in with a dude squad, and they start conferring over what to do.
Oh, so he's the one who brought it back. Okay, I wasn't sure because of the blankets. Oh, I guess he survived. How did he survive? Magic? I'll say there's vampires for all I know, sure. And he's really fucked in the head. Why is the American the one? Or is he the American? They both had brown. I don't actually remember which.
To do about Dracula. Van Helsing gives the crew a crash course on the many abilities and weaknesses of vampires, everyone except for Mina, because the dude squad is of the opinion that they can't possibly subject her woman's heart to such cruel knowledge. This
Seriously? That is literally the dumbest thing I can think, because she's probably the only person there who that'll actually help. No mortal should face the horrors I have known. I mean, on the one hand, he's probably the only person who has a reason there because he literally just had to do it. I mean, can you imagine if you were subjected to 3 hot women chasing after you? Horrors, man, horrors. I just realized my wife's in the other room, and she definitely heard me say that. Wouldn't want to worry your pretty head. No, you're too precious. My wife would want you. Wait, your wife? You were already married? I thought you were just engaged. Safe and content. Oh, so you literally just killed her again. Re-killed her. I don't think that counts.
This turns out to be a bad decision because Dracula unsurprisingly sneaks in and starts draining her blood. And if they'd bothered to weigh her woman's heart down with
Low energy. Weird nightmares. Sore neck. Open window. Honestly, it sounds like a Monday.
stuff like what signs to look out for, she'd probably have been able to avoid that, or at the very least tell them what was actually going on. A few days later, Dracula takes it up a notch by force-feeding her some of his own blood in order to control her and eavesdrop on the Dude Squad through her eyes and ears. The Dude Squad actually sees this part happen.
Wait, they actually helped? Oh, so you get turned to a vampire by draining, but him feeding blood back was actually canon? I thought that's something they added later. But it's for control because he controls his own blood. Oh. If only we could have prevented this somehow. Yes, I know. And of course, he's the American because he has a gun. That makes more sense. I mean, useless. And he's just screaming. Of course he is.
So at least they're up to speed on this. Oh, but before we continue, let's take a moment to do a little crash course of our own. See,
What?
modern vampires have been translated over and over again throughout all kinds of stories, and some of the more interesting lore has
The mathematician. They're actually referencing Sesame Street.
been lost in translation. So let's talk about the classic Dracula canon vampire lore. First off, the obvious. Immortality sustained by blood, even becoming younger when well fed. Then more classic vampire stuff, like doesn't cast a shadow, doesn't have a reflection, can turn into a bat, and a degree of super strength. Then we get
that's
the more
old.
esoteric abilities, like turning into a wolf, summoning mist, and riding moonbeams, as well as slipping through narrow entrances and seeing in the dark.
Moonbeams? That's just reflected sunlight. Oh yeah, because it's magic. Doesn't give a shit.
And of course, we need some weaknesses too. Dracula cannot enter somewhere unless he's been previously invited. Garlic keeps him at bay, his powers vanish
How did he get into her house then? Or anyone's house to drain their blood if he wasn't invited?
when the sun rises, and as always, holy symbols repel him. Then there's the more weird weaknesses, like the fact that he can only transform his body at noon, dawn, or dusk, and can't cross running water. And a wild rose stalk laid on his coffin will keep him from leaving it when the sun sets.
Really? There's wild roses?
That has the potential to be weirdly romantic. I'm actually surprised that hasn't been co-opted into sexy.
Don't say it. Don't finish the sentence. You know if you say it, someone will think about it. It's like, yes, I'll plant a rose to hold you forever. In your coffin, you damn dirty monster! It's bound to happen.
vampire lore. Get on that, urban fantasy writers. So Dude Squad Priority 1 is now
Just like, he's the dumbass. He's the American and doesn't have a gun out. It's disappointing. He's there, and then this guy has a freaking knife. A blessing to keep you. Ooh, whoops. And it's hissing against her, but she's turning, yeah. Objective, seal 50 coffins.
Finding all the boxes of Earth Dracula brought with him and sealing them away because he uses them to recharge his powers and remain strong. Then, with nowhere for him to run, they'll trap and destroy him. In the end, they account for 49 of the boxes, but both Dracula and box number 50 are nowhere to be found. But luckily, Mina can actually sort of tell what Dracula's seeing and
You said you don't know where he is. And she's doing her super vampire powers. Okay, got it.
hearing thanks to the mental link thing he did, and ends up putting together that he's on a boat. So she figures out that he's probably
Wait.
seeing and hearing thanks to the mental link thing he did, and ends up putting together.
Wait. Yeah, because it sounds like he's on a boat because she can hear that and she's smart enough to figure that out, unlike every other character here other than Helsing.
That he's on a boat. So she figures out that he's probably running back to the safety of Transylvania, safely ensconced in his coffin. So now the crew has to chase him all the way back to Transylvania and find him. After they lose track of him along the way, Mina comes through once again by logically deducing the river route Dracula must be taking to get up to his castle. She and Van Helsing split off from the group to seal away the castle itself and take care of the sexy vampire ladies, while the Dude Squad chase Dracula down on horseback to kill him before he can reach his castle. So they do, and Jonathan and Quincy kill him. And then Quincy dies. The book ends with an epilogue from Jonathan telling us that 7 years later, they're all doing well. He and Mina have a son called Quincy, born on the anniversary of...
Aww. Dad, boring stuff. Okay.
his and Dracula's death. How cheerful. And that Arthur and Seward are both happily married, although not to each other. Overall,
oh, that's disappointing.
It's a story where the impact is all in the delivery, and without the slow burn and gradual horror the original story managed to capture, every character derived from it loses some of their effectiveness and has to be reimagined to make them work on.
I have no idea what this is from, but no, is that Leave the Extraordinary Gentleman? Huh. And there's Van Helsing over here and Dracula over here. Granted, personal favorite, but that's for different reasons.
On their own. There's a reason why no pure film adaptation of Dracula exists. It's a story that can only really work as a book. The abruptly shifting perspectives that each reveal a little more of the story are what make the story so effective as a horror novel. You may know, Dracula on his own isn't that scary, and the plot itself isn't that scary either. Like all great horror, the fear is in the ambiance, not in the monster itself. And that's why vampires are sexy now. Thank you and good night. That night her kiss told me it was over.
I didn't get to touch on it much in this video, but Mina Harker is seriously OP in this. Really? Like, what did she do?
I walked out late into the dark.
Whoa. Pretty much every 5 minutes, she does something spectacular, and the Dude Squad responds with a resounding, "Oh, Mina, you beautiful human being, however would we do this without you?" I'm assuming the answer is you wouldn't. Or Helsing would do it slower. The rest of you are just kind of human shields. And then 5 minutes later, it's all, "Oh no, we can't keep you abreast of the situation. That'd be far too horrifying." Oh my god, they don't learn. Actually, the Victorian, yeah, never mind. You'd think they learn, but no. For some reason, Dracula is often characterized as being in love with Mina, despite them having a single conversation and one extremely traumatic encounter. Yeah, actually, even Helsing kind of touched on, if not that, closer to this than not. Ship wars have been starred for less, I suppose. Yeah. Mina x Lucy is the most convincing pairing in this book, by the way. Jonathan's hair turns white sometime between when he escapes Castle Dracula and when Mina finds him in Budapest. Just to clear that up, how did he get to Budapest? That's the wrong direction from England. I mean, granted, he's also running from his life from 3 women who are out to kill him, so details, but also how? I'm assuming it was in the book and I just didn't get covered. There's a character, Renfield, who's an asylum patient who's basically serves as an evil proximity sensor in the book, which is why I didn't talk about him in summary. His role is surprisingly extraneous. So he just knows when evil people are around him. That's actually pretty cool and a good way to tell people, "Oh no, vampire is near, but we can't tell where. You're being watched." And that's probably where he's actually a character from the original myth then, for Dracula at least. That's actually pretty cool. Quincy got stabbed by a Sagsy, which is why he died. It's a Quincy is also generally left out of adaptations of the story, mostly because he's supremely useless right up till the end. Damn, that is the biggest burn I've ever heard. Except for the one time where he pulls out Jack Russell Terriers out of nowhere. That was pretty sick. Okay, actually, yeah. Spontaneous Russell Terriers just there. Dracula may have sparkled in the sunlight, but he didn't burn either.
much
might
I
not
can
have.
show and
Wait, he didn't burn? Oh. When did that become a thing? Sounds like he's got a leg up on all these whiny modern-day youngsters. This has been an overly sarcastic production. Okay, so I'm going to be honest. Dracula not burning, that's weird. Like, all the other things she covered, cool. I like some of the things. I like Renfield being there because now the movie coming out about it is based on the character that actually had reference to the lore rather than just an OC they made, which is what I initially assumed. All of this, though, I'm just sitting here going, huh, he tried to take over England. And then he ran away when he lost 50 or 49 of the 50. Frankly, he probably should have gone somewhere different, but I guess he wanted to restock on dirt. I mean, it makes sense because I think that's the old lore where he has to be on his own grave to move sometimes, but I don't know nearly enough about that to say anything else beyond that. What I will say is, this is freaking cool, and I'm glad we saw this. This is probably something I wasn't expecting to say. No, never mind. I know it's something I wasn't expecting to say. I kind of want to get this book and actually read it because it sounds like something I would enjoy because it's not too horrifying, but atmospheric horror, when it's not in a video game, I kind of like implementation of, and frankly, I just want to see how cool Mina is because it sounds like she was actually one of the really fun characters to deal with, and I can ignore Quincy, which makes it a little easier to get through all that. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. If you like this, subscribe. And I'll see you guys next week with Pope Fight, or if I maybe get distracted and do something else. We'll see what happens. See you guys then. Adios.